Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Going bell to bell with the best in professional wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's get to all the exciting pro wrestling action and bring on the host. Here is Mark Hoke.
All right, let's do this. Hour number 2 of the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM. It is the talk of Las Vegas. And, of course, we're streaming on the Odyssey app along with live streaming the show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. So appreciate everybody joining us wherever you are, even if you're in those frigid temperatures where your car's not starting and you're looking at 40 inches of snow. It sucks to be you guys. I do not miss it at all, Stu Myrick.
I saw they were showing Bills are playing at home today, and they showed that stadium. Oh my God! Look, there's they always talk about how we in Texas can't drive in snow. That's why we live in Texas,
correct? So
we don't have to drive in snow. That was crazy. I mean, apparently Bills Mafia is digging the stadium out of the snow, so they're going to try to play that game today. But man, that's way too much.
Yeah, they'll play it too. I'll tell you what, it's having lived in Pennsylvania and living up in North Dakota, I learned very well how everybody kind of bands together when this horrible kind of weather hits, and it doesn't bother you too much. It frustrates you, but that's where you live, so you kind of just do your thing. So wishing everybody all the best up there that's getting caught in all that snowfall. Well, we had a great opportunity to sit down with one of ESPN's most fun personalities, and of course he used to be a wrestling promoter. Well, he ring announcer. I mean, he pretty much did everything and was part of the team that put together the ESPN 30 under 30 list, which caught a lot of attention. And we're going to hear from him right now. Arda Ocal joined us. So, Stu, we'll take a little bit of a break for us talking, and we'll get to hear from Arda. Here we go. And we are on the Mark Hoke Show. Very excited as we have a super special guest joining us today. From ESPN, Arda Ocal is on the line with us. And Arda, welcome to the Mark Hoke Show. Very happy to have you joining us today.
Mark, thanks for having me. I know it's Thanksgiving week. We're both up against it, trying to get ready for the Thanksgiving festivities, but glad to be here to talk some pro wrestling.
Absolutely. We're going to have a great time talking about it. As you guys at ESPN probably did one of the most thankless tasks you could do, making a list. Which is always opening yourselves up for criticism and comments that the people just go crazy on. But you guys did a terrific column here with the 30 best pro wrestlers under 30. And it was certainly, I think, a high attention getting list. Before we get into where you ranked everybody, give us an idea of what you and the team put into this list in terms of criteria and what you were looking for when you ranked everybody up.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'll talk about it from my vantage point. First of all, shout out to our ESPN team, particularly that cover combat sports. People like Marcus Vanderberg and Andreas Hale and Mike Coppinger. And, we have a really great team of writers and editors and people who oversee the vertical that allow us the creativity to be able to put lists together like this. And let's be honest, whether it's ESPN or elsewhere, lists are meant to be debated and parsed, right? Like, I have a lifetime of interacting with, certainly in my younger years, being a passionate pro wrestling fan, where it was, in many years of my life, it was the biggest thing to me, right? So I understand completely when a pro wrestling fan reads a list and they don't agree with something, the vitriol that they might feel or the opposition that they feel the need to say online and have a platform to do so with social media. So I would never begrudge those people ever, because at the end of the day, just like any pro wrestler will tell you, it doesn't matter whether they love you or hate you. It matters if they're talking about you. The worst thing that can happen to a pro wrestler is if people are indifferent and they're not paying attention, because it's the attention currency, right? It's the attention game. So putting together this list, certainly the biggest factor is they have to be under 30 years of age. So that's the biggest one, right? But beyond that, I mean, any factors that you would consider, right? Marketability, star power, in-ring acumen, character, history, you know, how do they do, actually even more than history, like how did they do this particular year or fiscal year as compared to last year's list, right? And so I know a lot of people were debating the number one pick. Last year it was MJF. This year it was Dominic Mysterio, and a lot of people were debating whether Dominic, in their minds, deserved the number one pick. I absolutely believe he does. I think he, on many nights, is the best pro wrestler in the world in all categories. And that's the thing, like pro wrestling fans will adjudicate pro wrestlers or judge pro wrestlers in their mind or rank them based on what they hold dear. There are a lot of pro wrestling fans that hold in-ring work rate in the highest regard. Others hold character work in the highest regard. Others hold drawing ability in the highest regard, right? So that's something to keep in mind when all of these, people are debating online. You have to understand what matters to them most, because oftentimes it's different things.
So let's run down that top 10 for anybody that may not have seen the column. So it went Dominic Mysterio, MJF, Tony Storm, Rhea Ripley, Mariah May, Kensuke Takeshita, Jack Perry, Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia, and Shota Umino. Excuse me. I don't know how you really, you're splitting hairs with a lot of these people in terms of where you're putting them. But in terms of, let's talk about Dominic first. What made you feel that Dominic was number one? And it sounds like without a question, you felt like he was number one.
So this is by committee, of course. One person did not determine this list, right? Like this is a committee of the ESPN panel that is putting this together. And after which, well, actually, we were assigned the people to write about before we even knew I didn't know Tony Storm, for example, was going to be number 3 when I wrote my blurb about Tony Storm. So I was assigned my wrestlers to write about, not knowing exactly where they might end up on the list. So, we give our input, but at the end of the day, the list is put together. If you're asking me why I believe Dominic Mysterio is the number one, I mean, look, you could split hairs between him and MJF. I believe that MJF is going to continue to be ultra successful in pro wrestling. I think he's going to make millions of dollars. I think he's going to be a main event player wherever he is. If he stays in AEW for the rest of his career, he'll be a main event guy as long as he wants to be. If he decides to go to WWE one day, he could be a main event guy and have a long title reign there as well. Like I just see a lot in that guy. And I think that MJF and Dominic Mysterio have a lot in common. I think that the biggest thing they have in common is the fact that they essentially stay in character, like they are the last, like it's funny to watch The Undertaker, right? Like The Undertaker for a very long time was the standard for keeping kayfabe with your character, right? Like would never break character, would always be The Undertaker, even at the airport as much as in the ring, right? But it feels like Dominic Mysterio and MJF are cut from that cloth. The way that they respect the character, portray the character, live the character. And to me, even if in certain instances it is them to the volume turned up, which is how we've always heard, wrestlers like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin be successful. It's just them with the volume dialed up to 11, right? if that's the case with both of them, it's easier to portray a character like that. But the fact that they are cool as characters without feeling the need to be cool, especially as heels. And that's something that it's not a new problem. It's always been something that's discussed. The idea that the heel feels, when portraying a heel, you feel a need to be cool as opposed to drawing heat. And I think that Dom and MJF have done a terrific job, especially so early in their careers, of generating large amounts of heat and drawing interest from a pro wrestling audience in their matches and storylines.
And as we go down through the list, very representative organizations all over the world. And I think great representation for the ladies, too, because if you look at the list, I mean, ton of women up there, a bunch in the top 5. I mean, that's pretty sensational when you think about that with with the women, that they are being that successful. I don't know if we'd have been able to say that 15, 20 years ago. I mean, you couldn't imagine a list like this with 3 of the top 5 being female.
But I would also say that's a product of the time and how women were booked, and the parity was certainly not on display in yesteryear. And I don't see it as a shock at all. Like on many, I know I said this about Dom, but on many nights, Toni Storm and or Rhea Ripley have been the best pro wrestlers on the planet in their matches. Like they own weeks, they own months, and but the paradigm has changed for the better, and rightfully so. Like that doesn't seem out of the ordinary anymore. It's just Rhea Ripley is a fantastic pro wrestler. Toni Storm is a fantastic pro wrestler character. Like it doesn't feel like it's a conversation about anything other than their work in the ring or their work behind the microphone. And Toni Storm falls in the same category as MJF and Dominic Mysterio. Like what impresses me about Toni Storm is there's a select few wrestlers. Cody Rhodes is one. Drew McIntyre is one that find a high level of success in a post WWE world, right? Cody Rhodes is disenfranchised with Stardust, leaves WWE, makes himself into a Dynamite main event guy, comes back to WWE and is now QB1, as he says in his bio. But also he is, right? He's the next John Cena. He's the one that's going to fulfill all the appearances. He'll maybe one day break the record for most Make-A-Wish grants. You could see Cody Rhodes being that guy. And he reinvented himself after leaving WWE in a situation he wasn't happy with. Same with Drew McIntyre and same with Toni Storm. Like Toni Storm has done a fantastic job. Like to me, some of the best diamonds in the rough in pro wrestling come from abrupt, unexpected left turns in characters. And timeless Toni Storm, in many of her promos and also in a lot of the post-game or the post-show press conferences has been an absolute breath of fresh air. Like, just
tell me about it.
My goodness. Like, just it's gold. It's a gold mine for someone like Toni Storm, who's an absolute creative.
What are the most controversial decisions that you guys had on this list? Maybe per fan feedback. What have you heard that when you hear comments get made that say, well, maybe we could have gone in that direction. Okay, I see that point. Where have you guys been getting hit the hardest on it?
The comments that I've seen, 2 come to mind. Austin Theory is number 1. Actually, no. Logan Paul is number 1. His placement, so he is number 22. And I see 2 camps, and like he got a lot of comments from what I've seen. This is from my cursory research on social media. A lot of people think he should have been higher. A lot of people thought he shouldn't have been on the list at all. I personally think if you were asking me and this was my personal list, he'd be top 10. I think he has done so much for WWE. WWE has done so much for him. He has shined in a way that he has no reason or no business shining in the amount of matches that he's had, in the amount of time that he's been in the ring. Like, he could have a main event match. He's had main event matches so early in his career, and he looks natural in there, and he just gets it. Like, him selfieing a video of himself frog splashing from the top turnbuckle into a table, like, that's brilliant stuff that pushes the boundaries. We haven't seen that kind of stuff before often from, previously, but Logan Paul not only can get away with it, but also excels in doing it. So my opinion is that he's absolutely a credit to WWE and to pro wrestling, and he's gravitated to it like Kurt Angle-esque, really. Like, I'm not saying Kurt Angle is arguably the greatest pro wrestler of all time in the ring. Like, he's in that conversation, right? I'm not saying Logan Paul is. I'm saying Kurt Angle is also known as somebody that picked up pro wrestling extremely fast, right? Like, we often talk about Kurt Angle and his career and how quickly he adapted to pro wrestling. Logan Paul has that similar trait, is what I'm saying. He picked up pro wrestling particularly quickly, and he's been dynamite. And so at 22, little low for me personally, but that was a big one. Austin Theory, another guy who I really think, maybe with different storylines, booking, etc., will absolutely shine. I listened to my buddy, fellow Canadian Chris Van Vliet, did an interview with him recently, and I just left that thinking how humble and how much of the right attitude Austin Theory has outside of the ring. And so that just particularly impressed me. With no matter what has been thrown his way, he's just made the best out of it, made chicken salad out of chicken, So Austin Theory, I understand why where is he on the list? He's pretty low. Where is he? Number 15. So he's right in the middle of the list. Could he, for in-ring presence and being a total package outside of booking, he's a top 10 guy for me, for sure. But, I'm not mad at it per se, but I think that we'll look back. Let me put it this way. I think we'll look back on this list in 5 years and say, wow, like, look at Austin Theory now.
Yeah, it's a fascinating list when you start going through it and you think about the future of pro wrestling. And this is the group that's going to be carrying the industry in the next 10 years. And there's so much talent on this list. A lot of times you'll see a list like this and you start getting down into 14, 15 and so on. And you're like, oh, okay, these guys, right? This list from top to bottom is so exciting to look at, because you just think about it and say, my God, we're going to have some terrific pro wrestling for the next decade because of people like this. All right, and we are going to take a break and come back. Stu, Myrick, and I doing our thing here on the Mark Hoke Show as we are listening to our interview that we got with Arda Ocal from ESPN. You see him on Sports Center and all over the place. So appreciate him taking the time out. We come back more with Arda Ocal. And, of course, Stu Myrick, and we'll get his reaction. I'm sure he's probably looked over that list and is thinking a little bit about it, too. So we will be right back here on the Mark Hoke Show on KDAWN 101.5 FM, the talk of Las Vegas. Stick around, everybody. Got a whole lot more coming up.
Looking for high-quality custom screen printing in Las Vegas? Look no further than Off Grid Creations. Need a few custom t-shirts for a local event, band merchandise, or family reunion? We've got you covered. Large order of uniforms for your staff, sports team, or club? We can handle that too. Our experienced team will work closely with you throughout the entire process, from design consultation to final product. Call us at 661-300-1115. That's 661-300-1115, or visit our website at off-gridcreations.com. Get a free consultation today.
101.5 FM KDAWN. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM. Talk of Las Vegas, best in pro wrestling news and entertainment. Got Stu Myrick along for the ride with me on this, and we're going to hear more now from ESPN's Arda Ocal. So I hope you enjoy it.
An abundance of riches. Like, I mean, I thought we had a really good talent core when I was doing independence in Ontario, Canada in like 2005 and until like 2012. Like we had a great flow of talent, whether it was local talent or even talent that we were able to use at TNA at the time, like they were looking for independent bookings and they would come in. We'd get guys like the Motor City Machine Guns who are now like, what a story they are. Like I remember working with Chris Sabin for random bookings in 2006. And now him and Alex Shelley are in WWE, which is amazing. Like I'm so happy for them because that was a long road to get to a place like that, So, but the talent, to your point, especially the younger talent, and the way that the recruitment and the development system is, it's never been better for not only somebody who has the genetics, the size, the strength, the speed, but also the desire to be a pro wrestler, from the ID program to the thriving promotions that have a lot of backing and spotlight behind them, to the development, if you're looking at WWE, at the Performance Center, AEW, Impact, the GCW, Japan, Mexico. Like there's these territories certainly existed, but like it's never been more clear how to make a livable wage as a pro wrestler and develop as a pro wrestler than perhaps ever, based on my observation of how independent wrestlers are getting noticed, or athletes from other realms are getting noticed and trying pro wrestling. So that it's not a new story, but I feel like the formula is as advanced as it's ever been.
And we're on the Mark Hoke Show with Arda Ocal from ESPN. And to go on that point a little bit, I've been watching pro wrestling since about 1982, and I have never seen the industry in such an incredible place right now. I just love turning on the TV and seeing what's going on in WWE, AEW, TNA, and other organizations. MLW is going to be taking a step up here soon, and all the great indie promotions right down to like what we have here in Las Vegas with FSW. It is a stunning time that I never thought we'd see.
Absolutely. And as somebody who worked in the independents for a very long time, support your local indies. Even if they don't bring people that you recognize, go and support them. They have a dream. They're chasing that dream. It's a very arduous, long, difficult road, and you're there in the ground up. It's like watching an indie band that finally gets signed by a label. There's no better feeling than being a fan and watching someone's journey from day one. I have several examples of that I've seen them from their first match in Toronto to now they're in WWE and thriving. So that warms my heart to see, because I know how difficult that journey is, and I've been on those roads logging those miles with those wrestlers. So I know exactly the sacrifices they have to make, and I wasn't taking bumps. They were putting bumps on their bump cards, so it's infinitely more arduous and difficult doing that journey than it is talking behind a microphone, which I'm very blessed to do. But to your point, the idea, like the other thing that I see often on social media is this tribalism of WWE versus AEW, or people that only like Japan, or people that only like Mexico, or people that only like a certain promotion. Pro wrestling is pro wrestling. I'm not saying we all have to get along, but to me, I guess the way that I look at it is, I remember the days where there was really only one promotion where you could make a good living, and that was WWE. And in the second biggest promotion at the time, those wrestlers were still hungrily looking for independent bookings because they needed to supplement their income. And there are still those kinds of cases today. But AEW has certainly provided an alternative where wrestlers can make a good living plying their craft. And we can never begrudge that. the more places there are, the more spots available for wrestlers to work and to be creative and to put on a great show for fans, to me, that's a win. So I will never be like, oh, like this stinks, that whatever. It's more, I appreciate that because I remember a whole different landscape back in the day when I was in the thick of it. And that was far less fun than wrestlers having the opportunity to find jobs elsewhere. So
I got to tell you, this is the first time we've got to talk, and the love that you have for pro wrestling is just oozing out of you right now. It really is. I can tell the passion that you've got for this because you've been involved in so many other things, and with ESPN, the NHL, video gaming, the whole gamut. But man, I can just feel the love of the game, man.
I look, I'm very happy in my life. Like, I get to do a lot of amazing things with ESPN, and I hosted SportsCenter yesterday, and I am in the mix with the NHL and ESPN, which is exactly where I want to be. I grew up a hockey fan. It's my first love. And to be able to host SportsCenter, it's a television institution. I am absolutely blessed. I grew up loving two things the most in life: hockey and pro wrestling. I love pro wrestling. When I joined WWE, it was a dream come true. I had several dreams, and that was one of them, and it came true. And honestly, when I left WWE, it kind of closed the chapter for me, and I felt at peace. And I said, I think I need to take a break from pro wrestling for a while. And it's been nice to be able to dip my toe back into the pro wrestling realm, whether it's WWE bringing me back for talking head segments on documentaries, or ESPN allowing me to write articles about WWE and, do certain fun projects. That's enough for me. Like, I'm very happy with my contribution to the pro wrestling space. And, friends that are in the business still send me their matches every now and then. And I'm happy to watch them and, give notes as needed or whatever. But really, like, from a contribution standpoint, I'm happy. Like, life is good.
So what is some of the craziest stuff you've ever covered? Because I know you've done so many things. I mean, I was looking down over your history, and I almost feel like you could have done the Wide Wide World of Sports back in the 70s and just walked in and done just about anything and had fun with it. What's some of the more entertaining things that you've had to do?
I mean, I've done a lot. Like a lot of my time at ESPN was actually spent in esports and gaming, believe it or not. Like, I got hired full-time in 2019, and it was to do MLS soccer, sports betting, and esports. And I barely do any of that now. Like, yeah, it's like ESPN is the kind of place where, you just say yes to everything, and I just move with the currents, man. Like, SportsCenter presented itself as an opportunity in 2021. I jumped at the chance. The NHL returned to ESPN after a long hiatus. I raised my hand. I've been very blessed and lucky to be in the right places at the right times to be able to raise my hand to get these kinds of opportunities. And, like I said, I'm so happy, like, doing hockey as my anchor and doing SportsCenters, being in the mix there, but then also having the freedom to be able to do these kinds of things like pro wrestling. Like, the old adage is essentially, once pro wrestling is in your blood, it never really leaves, right? You may leave pro wrestling, but it'll always pull you back in somehow, some way. So I'm lucky in the sense that I have this kind of outlet to be able to scratch that itch, So if you were asking me, though, like, what is my what do I find the most interesting in pro wrestling? I'm happy to contribute to today's product. I'm happy to watch and do recaps on Survivor Series or do, write blurbs for the 30 under 30. Like, that's a lot of fun. Where my passion really lies with pro wrestling is the historical content. I love, I think one of the greatest things that's been happening lately is the content on the WWE Vault YouTube channel.
Oh,
it has been,
awesome,
my gosh, it's awesome. Like, all the Survivor Series backstage footage that they just posted, that kind of stuff I could watch for hours. Like the whole Paul Bearer thing, doing a promo, and the Undertaker ribbing him with the skeleton, with the skull. and him getting upset. Like, I could watch that stuff for hours. It's so funny. Like, yeah, that's I love that. I love consuming that. I love like talking about that stuff. But yeah, man, like I don't know what else to say. Like, I love being in the mix and dipping my toe and having like a corner. Like, I don't know if it would ever be my primary focus ever again, but I love it. I love having it as even a small part of my career. That's a lot of fun for me because where else can I apply all this useless knowledge, Mark?
All right, there you go. And there is more to that interview. We'll have it posted on the YouTube channel in probably about a half an hour or so. But Stu, just your thoughts about what you heard from Arda Ocal there. That's what a guy that just loves pro wrestling. It's awesome.
Yeah, Arda is well known as far as his expertise in pro wrestling. Of course, he's worked for years. You heard him talk about working in TNA, of course, working in WWE. He's one of the guys that a lot of people will listen to. It was fascinating to listen to him. Fascinating to learn. He loves the WWE Vault channel on YouTube, which has a lot of great stuff from back in the day. And the funny thing is, it's not all WWE. They will post stuff from WCW. They will post stuff from the libraries that they have, whether it's World Class, Mid-South, AWA. So that's kind of cool. And that, of course, you and I are in the same ilk. We started watching wrestling around the same time. When I started watching wrestling, Harley Race was still the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I watched when Hacksaw Jim Duggan was a heel, part of the Rat Pack in Mid-South. So, I have an appreciation for that as well. And the list that they did, the top 30 under 30, yes. Look, I've worked in sports radio for 15 years. Lists are meant to create debate. That's,
absolutely.
We do the, it doesn't matter if it's a ESPN list, if it's a preseason football poll, that's what they do. And yeah, this one created debate. I think I do agree with Dominic being number one. If the only reason is because MJF has not been that active in 2024. I think that's why he's number two. He is still MJF. And look, I've known him. I've called matches for him. He is. You could flip flop those. I get that. The interesting thing I like is this top 30 list includes, it's not just WWE and AEW. There's like 3 wrestlers from All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, I knew Japan, All Japan.
There's Kiyomiya from Noah. They went deep to find the top 30 under 30, and I like it. Placement, sure, I do. I get why he likes Logan Paul. Again, I think it's the lack of active. We haven't seen him that much in 2024, so I get why he got knocked down a little bit. But he is a phenomenal talent. You're right. I will say this: there was a tweet I saw. I don't know. It was a few weeks ago. Mentioned if you could imagine these 4 people: Braun Breaker, Brock Steiner, who is Braun's cousin, I guess. He's Scott's son. Gage Goldberg, who's now playing college football, and Jacob Henry, of course, the son of Mark Henry.
Oh, my God.
I know. I covered Jacob in high school football, and, of course, he's wrestling at OU, which is his only knock. But can you imagine those 4 in a stable in the future?
Oh.
Dear Lord.
Wow.
That would be, Jacob is on a NIL deal with WWE already. So we're going to see Jacob in WWE, whether in NXT and such. That is going to be an off the chain. That's going to be one of those factions that if they can book it right, it might pass the 4 Horsemen as the greatest.
Wow.
And I still say the 4 Horsemen are the greatest faction ever.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, the list was very intriguing, and so one thing, and I mentioned this in part of the interview. One thing that intrigued me was you had 3 women in the top 5. You know, with Rhea and Tony and Mariah May.
Mariah May. Yeah, it's Tony Storm 3, Rhea 4, Mariah May 5.
I mean, you couldn't have imagined that years ago. And there's obviously a lot more down if you keep running down the list. But it's amazing to see the respect that women now have in this industry that they did not have, before the revolution. This is a long way from Vince pulling his little stunts. I mean, these are talented ladies who are being featured because they're damn good at what they do instead of other factors.
They really are. And it's kind of funny. So, you got those 3 in the top 5, and then you got to go to 14 to find Chris Statlander, and then Jordan Grace at 16. I feel like Jordan Grace could be boosted up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's not just because she's a fellow Austinite. She's that damn good. And same thing with Chris Statlander. I think she could have been boosted up a little bit. Austin Theory at 15. I think the booking, this whole, will he or won't he split from
Grayson Waller.
Thank you, Grayson Waller. I think that has hurt that a little bit because it's been a little bit of confusing booking. But yes, he's a phenomenal talent. You look at, and then you go Tiffany Stratton at 18. That's one of those. It's like, okay, I like that spot because I think she's got a lot of potential. You go to, and then Roxanne Perez
was at 20, and that was one that I was like, man, that seems a little low. But
I would have probably bumped her up into the top 20 again. And she is so young. We know her in Texas. She of course she cut her teeth with reality wrestling down the Houston area, and she worked a lot of the Texas Indies, and of course for not only the current NXT Women's Champion, former Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. She's another one of those. She's got a long way, and the sky's the limit as far as her potential. There is no ceiling to what she can do. So it's a great list, if for another reason, to create the debate. And by the way, what Arda said, the tribalism is stupid. Just love wrestling. And yes, support your local independent wrestling. If you're here in Austin, Inspire After Death, Rhodes Wrestling Association, Baracho Pro, support them. Because I will tell you, just like I used to say with minor league baseball, because we have the Round Rock Express, the AAA affiliate for the Rangers, these folks that you see in these independent rings, you will see them on TV one day.
Absolutely. And we've seen it at FSW. A lot of people, more and more, are, Solo Sikoa's main event and shows. You got Zoe Stark and Ellie Knight, and so many great ones have come out of here. And it's just getting to be more and more. Vegas is really becoming a nice hotbed for training independent wrestlers, and people are digging it. So get out and watch these shows because, man, there's some great talent. And somebody hire Danny Limelight, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out right now. Just hire Danny. What are you doing? All right, we're going to take our final break. We've got the TNA Turning Point. We got to talk about that a little bit before we get out of here. And a whole lot more. So stick around, everybody. The best in pro wrestling news and entertainment on the Mark Hoke Show. I'm Mark Hoke. Stu Myrick from Sports Guys Talking Wrestling at Stu Myrick, STEWMYRICK. Stick around, everybody. We'll be right back.
.101.5 FM KDAWN. You're listening to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Vegas, The Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Now, here again is Mark Hoke.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Final segment of The Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM, the talk of Las Vegas, the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment. And, of course, Stu Myrick from Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. He's part of the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment, too. Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
I like to be.
Okay. Nice Christmas tree in the background, by the way. Those of you watching on a live stream, you got
my little wrestling Christmas tree. So got trying trying to holiday up the studio here. It is all wrestling themed. So I got WrestleMania, got an old school ROH, we got the American Nightmare, got all sorts of ornaments. So yeah, trying to get a little festive here.
Nice, and it is legal because it is December.
Hey, look, it's the main Christmas tree goes up the weekend before Thanksgiving. So,
really?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Well, especially now because there's not a lot. Thanksgiving came so late in the month. You don't get to keep stuff up as long. So yeah. My main Christmas tree came out the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Well, good for you, but yes. I don't think Christmas decorations should go up until December. That's just me.
Well,
it's kind of my rule.
That is your opinion, however wrong it may be.
Okay, fair enough. And by the way, my daughter is having her birthday tomorrow, so I want to wish Amanda a very happy 16th birthday. Hopefully she's not going to destroy
16.
my world. Yeah, I know.
Oh, aren't you in for it?
Dude, I was in for it 10 years ago. Come on. Well, we did have another big event this week as TNA had Turning Point coming at you from Winston-Salem on Friday night. No title changes, Stu. Not a one. But I do believe we've had a changing of the guard a little bit at this. I mean, I think you could really say this is literally a turning point. Mike Santana continues to go up the ladder. Steve Macklin beats Josh Alexander. So Macklin looks like he's going up. And, Lord knows where Alexander's going to end up. I think his contract's coming up soon. Masha Slamovich.
By the way,
I'm sorry.
Nice use by Macklin being a fellow veteran. Nice use of the shell casings. I was in for that one.
That was pretty cool. Slamovich beats Jordan Grace in the 2 out of 3 falls match, so she remains the TNA Knockouts World Champion. Nemeth holds on to the TNA World Championship. But I thought it was interesting that we're seeing some new faces, or even some that have been there and working their way back up, taken over in TNA. I mean, Joe Hendry is eventually going to get there someday, I think. But I thought it was fascinating that Alexander dropped a match. Jordan Grace dropped another match, so she's going to be out of the world title picture, probably headed to WWE. But it is a changing of the guard in TNA.
I will say this, through all the trials and tribulations that TNA/Impact have gone through over the years, that is one thing they have been very solid on, is knowing when to elevate talent. And they've done that time and again, and you're seeing it now. The other question to come out of Turning Point, what is JBL doing? He's showing up everywhere and just clotheslining everybody.
Yes.
He shows up, hits clothesline, and leaves. He does it TNA. He does it in GCW. Does it, your favorite indie, he'll show up. So Inspire After Death, we got a show December 8th at Empire Control Room and Garage in downtown Austin. I'm going to keep an eye out, see if JBL shows up there.
There you go.
He lives in Texas. It's not too far for him to come to Austin. I mean, what is his deal? And this is like the second time he's helped Nick Nemeth retain the title. So that's a big question coming in. But yeah, TNA has done such a phenomenal job of elevating talent. And man, they have been on just a roll the last several years, especially coming out of the pandemic. I say it time and again. TNA is somewhere that you need to keep an eye on, because you're going to see some fantastic talent. And yeah, you mentioned Jordan Grace. It's looking like she will probably sign with WWE when her contract ends, which I think that'd be a big gain for WWE. And yeah, let's see what happens in the realm of total nonstop action.
Yeah, it is fascinating what they've been doing, just selling out some decent sized buildings. I mean, they're not selling out big time arenas or anything like that, but the buildings they're going into, they're packed. And they have really generated some great interest with a lot of good talent. And, I think Nick Nemeth can probably say he's part of that because people love the guy. And I think just one of the most underestimated talents of all time.
What you just said about TNA, they're packing in these smaller venues. That's, so if you believe the rumor innuendo, the talk around the campfire, AEW may start downsizing a little bit. They've already announced Grand Slam in Australia. It's going to be in a smaller arena. TNA does it. They understand their place. They understand their place in the wrestling realm. They're a good promotion. You're not going to beat WWE. You're not going to beat AEW, but you're going to carve out your niche. It's kind of like what Ring of Honor did prior to the pandemic. You understand your place. And I think that was what made Ring of Honor so special, in the late 2010s, was they understood who they were and they went with that, and that's why they gained the following that they did.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see where TNA is in a couple of years because this progression is starting to catch a lot of people's attention, and it has been impressive. So, but nice card for TNA. Way to go, guys, and we'll see more of them down the road. It's going to be a heck of a run for total nonstop action. And we're having a heck of a run, Stu. It's going to come to an end today, though, because we're getting ready to wrap this thing up, man. So tell everybody a little bit about your show if they want to tune in.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling podcast drops midweek. Always have great guests. I'll be bringing Mark on pretty soon. But I get, great guest co-hosts like Mike Sempervive and Rick Uccino and several others. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts, and then follow me on all social media at Stu Myrick.
All right. And, of course, we put our podcasts up, too, on markhokeshow.podbean.com, or you can just go to markhokeshow.com and link to it. 198 shows plus some great other interviews and things like that up on the site. Of course, we thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show. Like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show. And on X at Mark Hoke Show. We will see you next week here on KDAWN 101.5 FM, The Talk of Las Vegas. And don't forget, Thursday night, it's The Mark Hoke Show Late Night. Coming back again. We'll see you then at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Thanks to Stu Myrick, Arda Ocal, and Coach Rosey. We'll catch you next week, everybody.
Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.